What is up, Netflix fans? Welcome back to my channel. We're talking the brand new South Korean series on Netflix. That is The Silent Sea. Now, as you guys know, it's Christmas time, so I'm actually not going to be here to review it. I'm going to be with family, but you know what? We're going to do it anyway.
Okay, you might be thinking to yourself, Austin, it looks like you're filming in your mom's garage. Hope she doesn't see this, because I'm filming in my mom's garage. The family's upstairs, they're celebrating Christmas, but you know what? I watched a show, I want to talk about it. Spoiler-free review, let's get into it. So during a perilous 24-hour mission on the moon, space explorers try to retrieve samples from an abandoned research facility steeped in classified secrets. This series is set in the future, and our planet has suffered from a lack of food and water. But one of our main characters, I wouldn't say our lead, he is a soldier for a space agency. Then he's selected for a team, including our main character, to travel to the moon. And like I said, their mission is, or at least seems like a simple one, it's to retrieve this sample and get back home safely. But as these space missions go in a show or a movie like this, it doesn't always end well, and there are a couple of comparisons I could make right off the bat. You look at something like Alien, more recently the Cloverfield film on Netflix. I actually think that's a great comparison, even though I would say the quality of the show and just the way it comes together is a bit better. There's also an element or two from Interstellar in there, not necessarily the story itself, but just some aspects, and if you watch the show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But all of those things come together to create for a big, grand, but at times claustrophobic, and the way that it handles these scenes in these corridors when it gets really dark and people are trying to discover something, or heck, even being chased after, those are the scenes that impress me much more so than the grand scale look of it. And I got worried in the first episode because I'm seeing some of these effects in the CGI, and I'd say overall it's really good, right? But in that first episode, I noticed some things that had me nervous. And then as we progress, I would say episode 2 is probably the least entertaining, even though there's information there that's very important for later on down the road. But it's one of those shows and one of those missions that starts out really simple. They're there for a reason, and you're getting an idea of what the dynamics are between these characters. And our main character is actually really familiar. You know her from movies like The Host and Cloud Atlas, and more recently, Kingdom on Netflix, a handful of TV shows on Netflix. And she's compelling. You really get an idea more so than any of them who she is at the beginning, and the fact that no one really wants to buy in to what she's saying, wants to buy in to what she's believing. And her mentality, honestly, is part of the reason why a lot of them survive certain situations throughout the show. So even though the pacing was probably my biggest issue at the beginning, like I said, we're learning a lot, we're understanding who they are, why they're on this mission, the fact that they have to do what they attempt to do, and ultimately don't do a great job of because they encounter something that tries to stop them in their tracks. You understand why I'm just thinking to myself, can we get to the good stuff? Can we get to when things inevitably hit the fan? And let me tell you, if you get 2 episodes in, you're going to be like, Austin, what's the reasoning behind me sticking with this show? But once you get to like episode 4 or 5, and everything's going down, and I mean everything, there's even a certain warning before this show starts. You see things, and one of them involving people throwing stuff up in the midst of this show. I believe it was episodes 3 or 4 the first time we see that. And I'm like, this is going about as crazy as I ever imagined. But as we get even further, right, 8 episodes, when we get to that ending and how everything starts to culminate and you understand why we are here in the first place, it caught me off guard. I have a lot of questions, and I'm not entirely sure if going back through this show would answer a lot of my questions. So in that way, I see some holes within the plot. But the overall idea of what it was doing was interesting for me. So if you can get on board with the pacing of the show and you like these types of sci-fi films, we've seen it countless times before. It all comes down to the personalities. And even if you don't like the personalities of the characters, I loved our main character, but even then, there's some entertainment to come from what starts happening. People losing their friends, people getting taken out in ways that they never imagined. This is me trying to tiptoe around certain spoilers because I want you guys to kind of experience some of these twists and turns for yourself. And I think that's one of the most important factors of the show, because even as familiar as it all is, you get those twists, you get those turns, and you get some really cool scenes with great filmmaking. And I mean, the way the camera is following these people through these corridors and always coming back to the character that just witnessed this tragedy. The one thing that really bothered me, though, it's like, she knows what she's talking about. Why does no one believe her? And even when it starts to become obvious, and eventually certain people buy in, but when it starts to become obvious, even then, you have your like, ugh. And another thing, the character types in this show, right? You have the guy who thinks he knows everything but doesn't actually know everything. You have those with sense of humor. You have those that bring certain aspects to this team that wouldn't otherwise be provided by certain other members. So the camaraderie, even the lack thereof between the team, that's important. And you don't ever really know who's going to go next, and you definitely don't know where the show is going. Because like I said, the ending, the way it all wraps up, the surprises, and then the possible cliffhanger. I believe this is going to be a one-season limited series type of thing, but you could definitely go further, explore this lore a bit more, and where certain people end up after this. And then looking back at where they came from, the planet and its situation, and how doing this means everything for those back home. That's important as well. So all of these things come together to create, I would say, much more of an interesting and fascinating concept. I do have questions about the plot, but I'm the kind of guy that likes a movie like this. I love Alien. I love when people are being chased through a spaceship and they don't know what's chasing them. And that's the vibe that you're getting throughout this entire show. So before I give you guys my score, I want to say thank you so much for joining me in my mother and father's garage. It's like a throwback to when I first started as a YouTuber. My family's upstairs celebrating the holidays, so I'm going to get up there. My score is a 70%. I want to say thank you guys for joining me and supporting this video, making vids on the go. We'll be back home just in time for my best and worst of the year coming over the next couple of days. And my best of Netflix list is already on my channel if you want to go check that out. Appreciate you guys for watching. Drop your thumbs up if you're still here, and I'll see you soon.